What's up, you guys? Ryron and Henry Gracie here. We stumbled upon a very disturbing video that's making headlines all over Brazil and definitely needs to be talked about. A fatal road rage incident involving a Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a pretty accomplished competitor of Jiu-Jitsu. And it's something that, that really hit home for us, and we felt that we needed to discuss as a community. We'll roll the tape for you guys right now. Viewer discretion is certainly advised. It's not for children, but you definitely need to see it, and we'll talk about it afterwards. So what you see here is the white car that pulls up, and the gentleman that pulls out of the car is a man that goes by the name of Thiago Guma. He's a very active Jiu-Jitsu black belt competitor, 29 years old, and man, it's the situation. So much to discuss.
Yes,
in terms of what went down.
I guess the first thing we had to consider is that we don't know what happened before they both got out to confront each other. We don't know, if somebody cut somebody off, how they both felt offended. In many ways, they were both offended and they were both defending themselves. So they get to this position where they're both out in the open.
Right, and yeah, the Jiu-Jitsu practitioner approaches him, as you can see, very assertively. And the guy who gets off the motorcycle, the other man, pulls out a handgun. And at that point, we don't have audio, but we can only assume that Thiago sees that he has a handgun. And
the man with the helmet and the gun is saying, "Get away, stand back." And he's saying that with his body language because he is stepping backwards. Yeah. He's holding the helmet out.
And the part that makes that so tricky is that he was retreating. The man who was carrying a gun was retreating. And the Jiu-Jitsu practitioner was advancing, very persistently advancing, until he eventually shoots in to take this guy down who has a gun. When it comes to, someone carrying a weapon and how you deal with an armed assailant, this is a very important subject to be discussed because clearly the Jiu-Jitsu practitioner had Jiu-Jitsu and all the confidence that being a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, especially a black belt, brings. And the way he was asserting himself and the way he was aggressing towards the man who was carrying a gun, it seemed, very dangerous, to say the least. We look at this and we say, wow, are we not doing a good enough job as instructors of Jiu-Jitsu to make sure that the students that we're equipping with these techniques and the confidence of these techniques, we are also equipping them with the rules of engagement and the recommendations and the humility and the knowledge of when not to use their Jiu-Jitsu, and in doing so, apply the highest level of Jiu-Jitsu and self-defense, which is ultimately self-preservation, even at the expense of your own ego.
Yes, when speaking about, street fights, getting in a fight is easy. Not fighting is difficult, especially when he just said when the ego is involved. So you have two people, let's just say no firearm, and they're arguing. For you to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to stop arguing, and whatever it is that I feel I'm defending and I'm fighting for, it's not worth fighting for right now. I'm just going to walk away and go home. That's very difficult to do.
Very difficult, but very wise and highly recommended.
And that is Jiu-Jitsu.
Even with no weapon.
And that's Jiu-Jitsu. Let's not get it confused. If somebody's, my same size, any size, and I say, you know what, it's not worth it right now. I want to walk away. I'm not concerned with people out there saying, oh, Ryron's a coward and he walked away. I know that I did what was best for me, and if it's ever a possibility, if it's ever an option to walk away, you should walk away.
Even in a normal street fight, let's say push comes to shove and we're arguing and someone spits on someone and now it's a fight. Right? The second that this person starts backing up, the person who you are in altercation with starts backing up, there is no more fight. For you to say, no, we have to fight now, it's going down no matter what, that's not applying Jiu-Jitsu. That's not self-defense. That's self-offense.
And even if the person doesn't back up and they're just standing their ground, for you to say, listen, I don't want to fight, and you take a step backwards, that's okay. That's good to test the waters. Now, if when you step backwards, they step forward, now you tell yourself, okay, I can't turn my back anymore because they're not going to give me any distance, and you need space to get away. So walking away, we're team walk away, team go home without fighting.
Yeah, and in this situation, for the two of us and all of our schools and certified training centers, who are such strong advocates of the self-defense and the street application of Jiu-Jitsu, the conversation of weapon defenses and the highest level of weapon defenses, which is never apply a weapon defense technique when you have any other option. That discussion happens on a regular basis. And the concern is that throughout Jiu-Jitsu, if Jiu-Jitsu is being taught purely as a grappling recreational hobby, and the instructors of Jiu-Jitsu are not applying and having the discussions that are necessary in order for their students to know when they should not use their Jiu-Jitsu, that's our biggest concern. So you might disagree with any martial art who teaches weapon defenses, knife, gun, stick, anything in between, right? Any martial arts, and a lot of times people are very critical. Oh, that weapon defense would never work. That gun defense would never work. This gun defense would never work. The reality is, whether or not the specific application of a technique will work is secondary to the fact that in that academy, there is a discussion around dealing with weapon-bearing opponents. And if there's never a weapon on the mat or in the training dojo or in the situation or discussion in the association with the martial art that you practice, that means that the instructor never really has the context to say the most important advice that they'll probably ever and can ever give you, which is if someone has a gun and they want your wallet, or if someone has a gun and they're threatening your ego, do everything you can to give them the wallet, check your ego, and walk the other way. That discussion precedes the teaching of every weapon defense technique we ever teach in the Gracie University Organization Certified Training Centers. So no matter what the technique is, that discussion is the foundation. And our concern is that if someone is teaching Jiu-Jitsu or people are teaching Jiu-Jitsu and this discussion never has a chance to be brought up, the question is, when does the black belt, who has all the confidence, all the conviction, all the resilience, all the toughness that being a black belt gives him, when does he get told that he or she should not use the techniques, even when his ego or her ego is being checked in the most dramatic way they ever have been checked?
Yeah, you need to be hearing this. You need to hear what Rener is saying at every step of the journey. So in the first month, right? In the first year, second year, every 6 months, every 2 weeks, it's always talked about.
Watching this incident triggered a memory for us that we kind of had simultaneously, and it was very real. And our grandfather always said, giving someone Jiu-Jitsu is like giving them a gun. And to give someone a gun without the responsibility, the rules of engagement, the integrity, and the intelligence and the judgment of how to use that weapon safely, efficiently, and properly is a liability not only for them, but for society as a whole. And when we saw the video, and you watch the video, you see the black belt Jiu-Jitsu practitioner advancing towards the other person as if he was the one who had a gun. That was what it looked like. Yeah. And we can only say, he didn't have a gun, but we can only attribute that to the fact that he had Jiu-Jitsu in the most profound way possible. We're here speaking to all the teachers of Jiu-Jitsu around the world. If you're going to give them the power and the confidence of Jiu-Jitsu, you have a responsibility to also give them the knowledge and the judgment and the rules of engagement regarding when they should and when they should not use these techniques. And if you're watching this and you're a student of Jiu-Jitsu, and if you train at an academy where this type of context, this broader context of real life application of Jiu-Jitsu is not being provided to you, then hear it from us. You don't have to hear it from your own instructor for it to be true. You just have to hear it from someone who, to you, makes sense on this topic.
Yeah, if it makes sense for you, you can run with it.
There you go.
Now, there's a very common, saying that I've heard for many years. I don't start fights, but I don't walk away from fights. What that's saying, though, is that I don't walk away, meaning if there's a little bit of an argument and somebody's puffing their chest, I'm not going to be the one to walk away. What we're telling you is that that's not Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is to walk away. Jiu-Jitsu is the path of least resistance. Jiu-Jitsu is efficiency. Jiu-Jitsu is self-preservation, survival. Jiu-Jitsu is all the things that you get when you walk away. So to say I don't walk away, that's like running your head into a brick wall. It's like, you're just going to keep going into the wall? No, you walk away.
He said it early on, and we'll end with this. The most difficult fight is the one you walk away from. Getting into the fight is easy. Letting your emotions take control of you in a relationship, in business, in life, in friendships, in the academy, out on the street, that's the easy part. The hard part is to check the ego. Right? We talked about how many fights would be avoided in the world if it weren't for egos and alcohol.
Most.
99.99%. And we think this one fell into that category. We don't know for sure, but we think. And like I said, there are times when you will need to fight for what's yours. And for your people, or for someone who can't fight for themselves, or an active shooter situation like we talked about not too long ago with the AR-15 in the restaurant there, Waffle House. You know, there are going to be situations where you're going to die or you're going to die trying. And there's no question of what you should do in those situations. But if it is at all avoidable, you know, the option should be clear. And the decision to walk away from the fight cannot be contemplated only when the moment arrives. That decision has to be made now, in the calm, kind of intellectually aware discussion and, you know, idea sharing situations and sessions that we're having right now. That's why this discussion is so important.
This discussion is practice. This is practice. So if I'm ever in the moment, I can say, you know what, it's not worth it. I have my kids here, my wife here, it's not worth it. Have a good day, sir, and walk away.
You're right.
This is all practice.
Practice is beautiful, because just the way we practice our triangles and our chokes and our reflexes for the actual physical altercation, we must also practice the mentality of defending ourselves against ourselves in kind of the moment of truth there. And if you don't practice and you don't build that resiliency and that muscle, with regards to checking your ego, it's not going to show up the day you need it most.
And that might mean apologizing. That might mean bowing down and apologizing, even when you're not wrong. Even when they're wrong, you're right. I'm sorry. Sorry for inconveniencing you, and walking away, because you know it's the smart decision.
There you go, you guys. Jiu-Jitsu lost one. I had never met the guy, never knew the guy, but if he loves Jiu-Jitsu, then he loves something that we also love, and for that, we are saddened that we lost one. And if it could have been someone who didn't do Jiu-Jitsu, we could have learned the same exact lesson. The challenge here is we thought that his confidence of Jiu-Jitsu played some role in his decision to pursue when retreat was possible. And as a result of that, the discussion must be had by us with our instructors and with anyone else out there who cares to learn and learn from this situation.
And of course, all, love and our condolences to his family and everybody who knew him. Respect and love.
Thank you, guys.